Today we're going to go over the answers for the monohybrid Punnett square problems. So first, the question asks, for each genotype below, indicate whether it is heterozygous or homozygous. So you should have discovered that anytime you have two letters that are the same, like capital T, that is a homozygous genotype. And if you have letters such as capital B, small b, that is a heterozygous genotype. So you should be able to go through and add homozygous or heterozygous to each of those answers. Question number 2 says which of the genotypes in number 1 would be considered purebred. So remember that the word purebred is the same thing as homozygous. So in this box, we're just going to write each of the homozygous genotypes. So we would put capital T, capital D, small t, small d, small f, small b, big B, and capital F. So those are all homozygous genotypes. And then number 3 says which of the genotypes in number 1 would be hybrids. Remember that a hybrid is the same thing as heterozygous. So here we're going to write each of the heterozygous genotypes, like capital B, capital F, small f, capital D, small d, and capital T, small t. Number 4 is going to be about genotypes and phenotypes. So it says determine the phenotype for each genotype using the information provided about SpongeBob. So first let's recall what phenotype and genotype are. Remember that the word phenotype means what something looks like or its physical characteristics. And then the word genotype is the genetic code that tells your body how to make those traits. So your genotype is how you code for your phenotype. So the first example says that yellow body color is dominant to blue, and it gives us the letter capital Y for yellow, the dominant color, and lowercase y for blue. So if something has the genotype capital Y, it's going to be yellow. If it has the genotype capital Y, small y, it's also going to be yellow. But if you have two small y's like we have here, that will give us a blue phenotype, because if you have two copies of a recessive allele, you show the recessive trait. The next problem is about shape. So square shape is dominant to round shape. Square shape is shown with a capital S, and round shape is represented by a small s. So if you have two copies of the capital S, then you will have a square shape. If you have capital S, small s, you will also have a square shape. And if you have small s, you will indeed be round. Number 5 says for each phenotype, give the genotypes that are possible for Patrick. So we're talking about Patrick the starfish here, in case anyone was wondering. It says a tall head, capital T, is dominant to a short head. So if in starfish a tall head exists, it can be coded for by two different things. It can be coded for by capital T, or capital T, small t. So one or the other. If it is short, then it's going to be coded for by small t, and that's the only option. The next question is about body color. It says pink body color is dominant to yellow. So if you have pink body color, it could either be capital P, small p, or capital P. If you have yellow body color, then it will always be small p. Number 6 says SpongeBob SquarePants recently met Sponge Susie Roundpants at a dance. SpongeBob is heterozygous for his square shape, but Sponge Susie is round. Create a Punnett square to show the possibilities that would result if SpongeBob and Sponge Susie had children. And we're going to use the letter S from number 4 on the page before this. So first let's figure out SpongeBob's genotype. It says right here that SpongeBob is heterozygous, so that gives us a clue as to what his genotype is. Remember, he has heterozygous genotype, so he has to be capital S, small s. So then we'll put capital S in that box and small s in that box. The next genotype we need to figure out is for Sponge Susie. And Sponge Susie is round because she's a round pants. That means that she shows the recessive trait. And in order to be recessive, she has to have 2 copies of the small s, or the recessive allele. So her genotype is going to be small s, small s. So then we're going to fill in our boxes. So we'll do SpongeBob first. The capital S is going to go into this box and this box from SpongeBob. And SpongeBob's lowercase s will go in this box and this box. Then we'll add Sponge Susie's genotype, and she has a small s, and she also has a small s in this row. And so then we can answer these questions. Letter A says list the possible genotypes and phenotypes for their children. So the possible genotypes, I'm just going to put a G for genotype, include capital S, small s, because that's what we see here. And then they also include small s, which we got from here. And then the possible phenotypes, remember that's what they look like, so I'm just going to use a P for phenotype. They're either going to be square, because capital S, small s gives us a square phenotype, or round, because small s gives us a round phenotype. Now we can answer some questions about our Punnett square. So it says, what are the chances of a child with a square body? So there's 4 potential offspring, and 2 of them, you can see, have a square body shape. So we can say that there are 2 out of 4. And that is the same thing as 50%. The next question says, what are the chances of a child with a round body? And here again, you can see there are 2 options out of 4 that give a round phenotype. And so we'll say 2 out of 4, or 50%. Number 7 says everyone in Squidward's family has light blue skin, which is the dominant trait for body color in his hometown of Squid Valley. His family brags that they are a purebred line. He recently married a nice girl who has light green skin, which is a recessive trait. Create a Punnett square to show the possibilities that would result if Squidward and his new bride had children. Use the letter B to represent the dominant gene and the lowercase b to represent the recessive gene. So we know that Squidward is light blue because it tells us that. It also says that his family is purebred, which remember is the same as homozygous, which means that Squidward's genotype is going to be capital B, capital B. He married this nice girl who has light green skin. We know that light green is recessive, and so she has to have the genotype lowercase b, in order to have green skin. So now that we've set up our Punnett square, we can fill in the letters. When you filled in your Punnett square, you should have had capital B's from Squidward in each of the boxes, and then you should have found lowercase b's from his bride in each of the boxes. The next section says to list the possible genotypes and phenotypes for their children. So the possible genotypes include capital B, small b, and that's it, because each of the 4 boxes has capital B, small b. And then we can look at phenotypes, and the only phenotype present is light blue. Letter B says, what are the chances of a child with light blue skin? And since all 4 out of 4 are light blue, you will get 100% light blue skin. And then letter C says, what are the chances of a child with light green skin? Since none of those boxes have lowercase b, 0% of their children will have light green skin. And letter D says, would Squidward's children still be considered purebreds? And the answer, of course, is no, because they are no longer homozygous. They are heterozygous. Moving on to number 8. It says, assume that one of Squidward's sons, who is heterozygous for the light blue body color, marries a girl who is also heterozygous. Remember, a heterozygous genotype is capital B, small b. It says to create a Punnett square to show the possibilities that would result if they had children. And since they both have that heterozygous genotype, we're going to put capital B, small b on the top of the Punnett square and the side of the Punnett square. And then we're going to fill in our letters. So this box should give us capital B, capital B. The next box should give us capital B, small b. This box gets capital B, small b, and the final box gets small b, small b. Letter A says list the possible genotypes and phenotypes. So they have several different genotypes that are possible, and that's because you have capital B, and then you've got capital B, small b, and small b, small b. Then we're going to look at phenotypes. So phenotypes are what they look like. So capital B, and capital B, small b both give you blue skin. But if you have small b, that will give you green skin. Letter B says, what are the chances of a child with light blue skin? And so first, remember we've got 4 boxes to choose from here, and 3 of them are going to have light blue skin. So capital B, small b, and capital B both give you light blue skin, and there's 3 of the 4 who have light blue skin. And so that will be 75%. Letter C says, what are the chances of a child with green skin? And remember, green skin only results if you have 2 copies of the recessive allele. And so small b is the only option for that, which means that 25% of their offspring will have light green skin. Now we're going to move on to number 9. It's our last problem. It says, Mr. Krabs and his wife recently had a little Krabby, but it has not been a happy occasion for them. Mrs. Krabs has been upset since she first saw her new baby who has short eyeballs. She claims that the hospital goofed and mixed up her baby with someone else's baby. Mr. Krabs is homozygous for his tall eyeballs, while his wife is heterozygous for her tall eyeballs. Some members of her family have short eyeballs, which is the recessive trait. Create a Punnett square using capital T for the dominant gene and lowercase t for the recessive one. So first, it's important to note that Mr. Crab is homozygous for tall eyeballs, and Mrs. Crab is heterozygous. So those are their genotypes, which means that Mr. Crab has the genotype capital T, because he's homozygous tall, and Mrs. Crab is heterozygous, capital T, small t. So then you need to fill out your Punnett square to figure out what are the chances that they could have a baby with short eyeballs. So when we fill in our boxes, you should have something that looks like this. And then letter A says list the possible genotypes and phenotypes for their children. So we'll do genotypes first. And they could either have offspring that have capital T, or capital T, small t. And then for phenotypes, the only phenotype that capital T, or capital T, small t can give us is tall eyeballs. So then that begs the question, letter B, did the hospital make a mistake? So their child that they took home has short eyeballs, but they are unable to have a baby with short eyeballs. So we're going to have to say that yes, the hospital made a mistake. Because Mr. Crab is homozygous for his tall eyes, they are only able to have children with at least 1 copy of the tall eye allele, which means that all of their children will have tall eyes, even if they're heterozygous for the trait.